All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk some golf. Today is July 11th, round 3 of the workday just started, and so I wanted to go over this Showdown sheet I'm kind of toying with. I've made 2 or 3 different ones. I've never posted them and shared them because I didn't feel strongly about them, but I've got one that I kind of like, so I wanted to go over and explain it to you guys and, solicit some feedback and see what you think. So I put in the round 1 data so I could kind of look at it, but don't pay attention to the salaries. These are round 2 salaries. I didn't update those. So this is what the main page looks like. And so we've got the golfer names up here, then we've got the salary, position, their score, and then we've got some stats here. And these are some stats that really kind of jump out to me. So you got birdie or better. And the reason I focus on this is because I had a couple golfers shoot 18 holes and go even. No bogeys, no birdies, and they scored nothing for points. But if you have the same golfer who goes birdie, bogey, birdie, bogey, birdie, bogey through the whole thing, he's going to rack up a bunch of points. So birdie or better is one of the categories I wanted to look at. And just for kicks, I put the eagle in here for guys. Like you could see, Colin Morikawa's number 2 in eagles, and then you've got Justin Thomas, who's 102. So if you have 2 guys that are similar, you can use that as a deciding factor. These here are 2 different, should be looked at independently. So you've got par 5 and par 4 scoring. So if a course has a high birdie rate, high eagle rate on par 5s, you want to look over here. Every course is going to have a bunch of par 4s, so that's kind of a backbone. And you can see here like 3-3. Of course, that's Justin Thomas. And you've got Hideki, who ranks really well. Colin Morikawa ranks number 1 in par 5 scoring and number 2 in eagles, but he's a little less on the par 4s. Then over here you have the approach and tee to green ranks, which these are a good indicator of how a golfer is playing. And the reason I have these in here is because this is their live stats, so you can kind of look and compare. Now, one thing I have noticed on the sheet, if I'm looking at a strong approach and tee to green, they might have a weak par 5, par 4 scoring. For example, Brandon Steele, you can see here in approach, he ranks 30th and 42nd in tee to green, but he's 109th in par 5 scoring. So I would say look through these 2 columns, find some good golfers who hit both of them, and we'll do that. And then look at the approach and tee to green, because they're not... You have Justin Thomas, who's good across the board, and of course he's killing this course. You have Morikawa, who's pretty solid across the board, but you're going to have some guys who rank really high on one but not on the other, and we'll take a look at those. Like, for example, scrolling down here, I can see Phil Mickelson. He's 90th in par 4 scoring, but 32nd in par 5 scoring. But then you can see his approach tee to green rank is not very good. So this gives you a couple of different things to look at to try to pick some golfers for your player pool or some people that you do like. And then over here I have strokes gained putting, and I don't use this for anything, but I'll show you why I put it here. Now this is the live strokes gained stats per round, and this is just looking from round 1. And approach and tee to green are the 2 most correlated ones that I've seen. And then if you add those together, I put it in just what I call a Scott score. So that's kind of how I've been looking at golfers independently, is just their strokes gained, approach, and tee to green. Now keep in mind, 1 round is going to give you some really skewed numbers. We'll look at the second round. I'll plug it in here in a minute. And after 3 rounds, you get a good indicator. And then here we have the strokes gained putting, which is a highly variable category. So a guy can get hot for a round, for a few holes, for a tournament, and then here's their rank putting. So these 2 I want to compare. Now you can see I color-coded the same for these stats, and then over here I kind of switched up a little bit so it's a little easier on the eyes. I kept the salary color coding the same as the cheat sheet. But here on strokes gained putting, if it's plus or minus 2, I highlighted it either this yellow orangish or blue. Blue meaning they are either really cold or really unlucky. Those are guys that I want to focus on. And then these guys that are hot with the putter, I want to find out why. Are they a good putter normally, or are they just getting really lucky? And that will help me decide if I want to fade or play someone in my player pool. So let's go ahead and look up top. Now, the obvious one is Colin Morikawa. He lost a tournament a few weeks ago for his putting. He ranks solid across the board, but he's 128th in putting. But in this tournament, he's plus 2.09 strokes after the first round. That's really good. So if he keeps that up, he's going to crush this tournament. So you could see this, you could say he either got really lucky or he's gotten better. Now this I had sorted, see it's not sorted yet, but we're going to sort by the Scott score and then we're going to go down and look. Now the one guy who jumped out at me after round one that I had in a handful of my showdowns is Corey Connors. The reason is his stats are decent across the board. Now his par 4, par 5, he's, around 50-ish, let's say. But his approach and tee to green stats are really good, so kind of puts him on my radar. He's decent in birdie or better. Terrible putting, and he's minus 3 strokes gained putting. So we can look at this and say, okay, he does suck at putting, but minus 3 that's an abnormally large number. That means he also got a little unlucky as well. So if he can improve on that, his approach and his tee to green numbers are really solid. It gives him a Scott score of 709, and that's with minus 3 putting. And I think that first round he shot minus 2, minus 4. My sheet could be pulling something wrong. I think he shot like minus 1 the first round. Let me look real quick. And over here I pulled Corey Connors, where are you? So I pulled this off so I could go back and look at their scores. Okay, here he is, Corey Connors. So he shot a 71, so minus 1 the first round, and then he shot a 69 the second day, so he did much better. So his strokes gained putting would have went up, but he's someone that was low owned that I wanted to go after because it looks like he just got a little unlucky with the putter, but had a good Scott score number. So that's the rough sheet. The key ranks here, so I pulled the birdie or better, par 5, par 4, and eagles. So I left off the approach and tee to green and put a rank score over here. And then this column I'm just kind of testing. It'll probably change a little bit, but the one thing that I've been doing is once I get the sheet uploaded, I come here and I sort Scott score high to low because I want to see who's playing with a strong approach and tee to green game. And then I'm also going to see how they are with their putter versus normally. Are they getting lucky? The one guy that jumps out here, Nick Taylor, he's got a strong approach and tee to green game, but again, it's one round. But his ranks really aren't that bad. I mean, his approach and tee to green, 108 and 70, that's terrible. But if you look at his par 5 and par 4 scoring, 35th and 24th, and then he's decent in birdie or better. And then eagles, he ranks number 6. So he's someone I threw in some lineups. So I'm like, all right, he's legit. I haven't owned him before this week, but we're going to give him a shot. And he's still minus 0.79 strokes gained putting. And he threw out a monster round. Let me see what he did. Yeah, he put a 67 up in round 1. And then Colin Morikawa, we talked about. He's strong across the board. Terrible putter, but putting lights out. He has the second highest Scott score with his approach tee to green. So he's someone that I really liked yesterday. And I think I ended up finishing third in the showdown for 200 or 250 or whatnot on a $1 entry. And he was the guy that I had locked in across the board because he was just on fire. And then you come down here, and so what I'm looking for are these guys that are plus, 0 to minus 1. The ones that are about a stroke around behind on putting. You can see here Connors was really cold. You can see at Hadwin, he's doing good, but he was really hot with the putter. But when I look over here and I see he's 7th in putting, I'm like, okay, Hadwin's just a good putter. So plus 265, he's good and he's doing his job and he's got a strong approach and tee to green game. So he's someone that should be consistent throughout the tournament. He ranks pretty decent, 12th in par 4. He's a little rough in par 5, but his approach and tee to green strong. So he's someone that you can continue to use. He doesn't jump off the board for me, but he's someone in there. And then kind of scrolling down here, whoever the Zhang is, he was minus 1.3, but had a pretty strong Scott score. But these Scott scores are golfers that are doing really good in approach and tee to green. And the reason I go for approach and tee to green, we'll go over that in a second. So here you have, so these two guys, I may consider fading. You can see Zach Johnson and Adam Long, they're doing really good. They're putting up good scores, but their ranks are not that good across the board. They're decent putters, but you can see this is a really high number for strokes gained putting, so they're killing it with the putter. A little lower on the approach tee to green, so it's not someone that I would think would come out and compete for a win, but they may do well. But if they miss a couple of putts, they're gonna, I would guess, drop quite a bit. But then you come down here into this range of these people, where you can see Kokrak, he's a terrible putter, he's doing terrible. He's doing decent here, nothing fancy. I think he fell off the map, and yeah, he was +8 there. Mickelson is someone who kind of jumped out at me that I put in my round 3 showdown. So he's decent in some of these categories, some he's high, but he's minus 2.7 strokes gained putting, and that's a ton. And he's super cheap, so he's someone that, I mean, if you give him a little luck with the putter, he's going to put up some points. And then Schwartzel, I'm going to look at his ranks, not very good, but he's someone that could turn around. He's doing decent. He's, maintaining over here with a 1.25 and 1.23 on approach and tee to green, so he's a little bit better in the field. And he's 23rd in putting, but he's minus 211, so these two numbers are drastically telling a different story. This is telling me over the last 36 rounds or whatever you pull, he's been a solid putter, but after the first round, he was minus 2.11 strokes. So he got cold, so that's someone that's super cheap that you could probably put in there and use for your round 2. Now, he was cut. These are the updated numbers. But I'm just pulling this in to kind of show you what is here. Now, the reason I like approach and tee to green before I get ahead of myself, so I'm going to go over here to Data Golf, and let me widen this up so hopefully you can see it. So we're going to go to historical event. Let me move this up so you can see this a little bit more. So this is one of my favorite places to look when I start doing my research. So here at, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, here, the 2019 Memorial Tournament was the main one. So the one thing I'm going to do, so these are your strokes gained categories. Now approach and tee to green are the two I find most correlated. And so I'm going to sort by them, and I'm going to look over here at the score and the cuts and just kind of see where it falls. Now putting we're going to stay away from, we'll look at, but it's variable and it's tough to keep that consistent. So around the green, you can sort, so the strongest around the green players, you had some that finished really well, and then you have some cuts in here, a handful of cuts. So I'd say 3/4 of the people, made it through. And then we're going to look at off the tee. And off the tee, this is why I don't like it. You can see the best off the tee person was cut, good, cut, good, cut. So out of this, there's 6 out of the top 9 missed the cut. So that's why I don't like off the tee. And then you had a string of kind of mid-rangers who did good, and then another little string of cuts. So I'm looking at the top 10, top to 15, how they did. So if you tell me a guy is really strong off the tee, and that's the main stat you're looking at, I'm going to say, well, 4 of the top 6 were cut last year, and one of those was a 48th, so he was borderline being cut. And then, so that's why I don't like that category. So approach is one that's pretty strong. Now look, out of this, let's see how many this is. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16. So 1 out of the top 16 in strokes gained approach was cut, and that was Scott Brown. You can see around the green, he was terrible. He was negative putting. But look at the places of these people who were strong in approach. You have second place, 4th, 17, 17, 1st, 7, 9, 3, 9. I mean, these are mainly top 10 guys with 2 17s. So a strong approach game did really well at this course. And then you come over here to tee to green, which I like even better. And I'm not going to count all these out, but we come all the way down to here before we see our first cut at Spawn. And you can see he was just terrible putting. So on this entire page, sorted by tee to green, you go all the way down, and there's only 2 people that were in the cut. Now compare that to off the tee, and we've got 5, 6 cuts on the top and a handful on the page. So I'm going to go back over here to tee to green. And so the strong tee to green players, you have 2nd, 1st, 6th, 4th, 7th, 5th, 9th, 3rd, 7th, 9th. So strong approach, strong tee to green are the two stats that I look for that are correlated with strong finishes. So when I say that, that's kind of what I'm looking at, or why I'm looking at it. And then we're going to come back over here. So when we take the approach and the tee to green, that gives us our Scott score. And then I usually sort by Scott score, and I'm just going to kind of cross-check this putting, see who was lucky, who was unlucky, and then make a decision from there. Now let me go ahead and fill up the round 2 data. I had to save it over here so I could kind of go back and show you how I popped Corey Connors yesterday. Let me go ahead and just plug that in there. Okay, so now this is what it would look like for at the end of round 2, so starting today at round 3. So if we go up here and we sort by Scott score, and you might not like the Scott score, or you might like off the tee, but you can see I don't even put off the tee in here. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and look at the putting. So the one thing I see, Morikawa, yes, he continues to be strong. Brandon Steele is the guy that comes up on top of the board. Now, he is 109th in par 5, but he's 14th in birdie or better. Putting, he's decent at 43rd, but he's minus 1.7 strokes gained putting through 2 rounds. But look at his approach and tee to green. He's 382 and 443. Those are solid numbers. If this number was even, he'd be in the top 5. So this is someone that I put in a lot of my showdowns for round 3 today. So hopefully he has a good round. He was only $7,300, and he's shot minus 5 while, minus 1.72 strokes gained putting. So I thought that was pretty good. He's one that jumped out at me. And then you come down here to Hideki and Thomas. These guys are studs. I'm not going to waste time talking about them. They were T2, T4, minus 9, minus 10. Their stats are just studs across the board. And you can see they're about the same putting. Thomas is typically a stronger putter than Hideki, but they're both, they're doing well. So these are guys I feel confident with. And in showdowns, you can get 3 studs easily in your lineup. So these are 2 guys I would put up there. Morikawa was another one. He's priced so cheap at $9,400. Good stats across the board, and he's just killing the putter. He's 2 strokes better than Hideki and Thomas through 2 rounds. So I have a lot of lineups today with Hideki, Thomas, and Morikawa. And then I did Thomas just because he has 2 rounds without a bogey, Morikawa, and then I flipped in some Victor Hovland at 93. And Victor's got some decent stats here, really good stats on approach, tee to green, number 4 in eagles, which is really good. And he's about even with the putter at .09, so that's good. He's typically not a strong putter at 87th, so I'm really happy with him just being even with the field, and that gives him a decent Scott score with a good rating. Now these guys in between, we have Richie. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. We have Keegan, Connors, Reed, Sabatini, Taylor, Ooze, and Chase. So these are the guys I'm going to look at here. Hopefully you can see that okay. So out of these guys, everybody, no one really jumps out with the putter. They're plus or minus, 0.5. Chase is a good putter. I see 1.1, and typically I say, hey, I'm going to fade him. He's getting too lucky. But he's actually ranked 24th in putting, so that's pretty good. And he's got a decent little approach and tee to green game, and I like him as a punt. He was 6,100, so I was able to get 3 studs and then put him in here as my punt, who's doing decent. I mean, he doesn't have fantastic ranks, and someone at this price usually doesn't, but 39th in eagles, 24th in putting, and 29th in par 5 scoring, and a couple good rounds under him. Yeah, I'll take that for a punt at $6,100. And then you've got Lewis over here, who's ranking, it's kind of decent putter. He doesn't do anything to really get me excited, especially at $8,000. I'd rather go down to 6,100 and take this guy than 81 at Ooze. That way I can get up here in the stud range and get more studs loaded in. So I didn't have any Uzi. Nick Taylor's someone we talked about. I was actually shocked when I looked at this sheet, priced at 76. He had a rough round yesterday, but, he's still doing decent. He has decent stats across the board, even with the putter. If this was like +2, +3, +2.5, I would say fade Nick Taylor. I don't want anything to do with him. He's getting way too lucky with the putter. but he's, pretty much even. Minus .03 to me might as well just be, hey, he's even with the field. And then I'm going to look at the approach and the tee to green, and he's got a really strong deal, and he's $7,600. And he was up at the top of the leaderboard for a while. He slid down a little bit yesterday, but he's still not doing bad. He shot a 67 in round 1, a 71 in round 2. So someone that I do like. And if you don't want to look through these ranks, you can quickly look at the key wins. So he ranked 27th in the key scoring stats that we're looking at, which is pretty solid. So he's someone I put in the player pool. Sabatini is someone that I always have. He burned me last week with a missed cut. And his stats are kind of up in the air. You can see, approach tee to green, he's kind of okay. Decent par 4, par 5 scoring. He's someone that's kind of always in the mix. Last week was an unusual missed cut for him. And you can see here, he's not a real good putter, coming in at 83rd, but in this tournament, he's plus .91 through 2 rounds. So he's doing good enough to get by. He's not someone that I think is extremely lucky. If he was like 2.8, I'd be like, okay, this guy's getting real lucky because he ranks 83rd. But he's doing decent, holding his own. He's got a strong approach, tee to green, only $7,400. He's someone else I used a lot of. And, Reed, you can see now he's $9,200. He's a little bit more expensive. I would rather go to Hovland at 93 or Morikawa at 94, or perhaps have both of those. But if you want to be different at GPP, I'm assuming Reed is probably going to be a lot less owned. But you can see he's number 1 in birdie or better, solid in par 5, solid in par 4s, decent approach tee to green game. Not a lot of eagles, but, he's getting a lot of birdies. And he's number 2 in putting. But through 2 rounds, he's minus .33 in putting. So I look at this and say, he's even with the field, but he should be crushing the field. So he's someone that's going to sink some more putts in these last 2 rounds and probably do really good. He's got a solid approach game, and he's stellar in tee to green at 354, and his ranking across the board is 32. So he's someone for GPP you could use. We talked about Connor. But you can kind of see the Scott score is going to put these guys up here, and then you can compare it with the putting. That's the number 1 that you want to do. Now, if you come down here, you start to see, let me sort by leaderboard, lowest score. So we're going to go smallest to largest. Okay, now we're going to look here. If you're looking at the top of the leaderboard, say you're wanting to do some sports betting and you're going to do a live pick on who you think's going to win, see who's not getting extremely lucky with the putter. Now, Streelman, he crushes this course. We know it. He has decent stats, but he's 74th in putting, and through 2 rounds, he's plus 4.24 strokes gain. That's ridiculous. I mean, that is extremely lucky. So I have no Streelman, but Streelman's the one that burned me yesterday. I took 3rd in a showdown for a few $100, and I was 2 spots away from 1,000. And Streelman was in that lineup that won, and he shot a ridiculous score. I can't even remember what it was. He shot a 64 after shooting a 70 in round 1. Well, he got extremely lucky with the putter. And then if you look at these top 4 guys, look at the approach for everybody else versus Streelman. They're 2 strokes better across the board. Tee to green, they're 3 strokes better across the board. So he's got a very low Scott score and a low tee to green. Now, I'm not saying punt him if he does get lucky with the putter and keeps running hot for the tournament, as some people do. He could run away and win this. I hope he doesn't. I think I do have like a $5 or $6 bet on him to win at some stupid odds, so I'd be happy with that. Burns is another guy I like. He was priced only $6,700 in the Showdown, T4, -9. He's got good birdie or better numbers. He's 9th in eagles, 30th in putting. He's getting a little bit lucky with the putter at 243. Not strong in the approach, but he's making up for it with the putter, and decent in tee to green. So at 6,700, I mean, he's down there around the punt. Hovland, what I like about this is he's hanging even, strong tee to green game, so we like him. Sabatini, I like him to continue. Chase, he's a good punt. He's just kind of hanging in there. I don't think he's going to compete to win or anything. And then you've got Poulter. Now, Poulter, I don't own any of for the round 3 showdown. He's only 7,900. He's shot -7 so far, and he's got good stats across the board. I do like Poulter. He's one of my favorite golfers. But at plus 375 on strokes gained putting, that's extremely lucky. Now, he is a good putter, So he could keep this up, but I think 375 is too high for him. I think if he was down around 1.5, maybe 2, that would be good. 375 is ridiculous. So technically, you could pull off, 4 strokes and put him at -2 is where he easily could have fell. And look at his approach and tee to green. He's negative a half a stroke and then pretty much even with the field, has a Scott score of -0.57. So maybe in a GPP, you say, okay, he got lucky with his putter. He's not doing good here, so maybe he's going to fall off and slide a little bit. And then you could go down here to someone like Richie Werenski, and his stats are kind of so-so. Decent putter, but look at these two. So Poulter's 5th in putting, Richie is 16th, but look at the difference on how they're doing. Poulter is crushing with the putter right now. He's running a hot stick, and Richie's not. He's just a little less than the field, but yet they're right next to each other at -6, -7. So I'm going to take the guy over here as the higher Scott score of 338 and 358 on the approach and tee to green, because we see a strong correlation with making the cut and running deep versus the guy with the hot putter who's got a little bit more variance. And then you can kind of use this and just go down the list. You could look at the Scott score, and like right here, Poulter jumps out as someone who is maybe, he has a low Scott score, he's getting a little lucky. Streelman's kind of the same way. And then the Morikawa, Thomas, Matsuyama, all decent. Hovland, Sabatini, they're good. And even Chase, he's got a better Scott score than Poulter. I'm not saying he's going to do better, but I'm saying for a punt, I don't mind dropping down there and saving almost $2,000. And you can just scroll down here and see the people who are doing strong. Like here's Steele again, -1.7 strokes gained putting, and he's still -5. So I think he could blow up and have a really good round. And he's got decent course history here. And then you've got another Norlander's he's a terrible putter at 118th, but he's plus 2.29, so he's been real lucky with the putter. Low Scott score, so he's someone that, he's not going to compete to win, but he's someone that might hang around in there, but I probably won't use for a GPP and a showdown. And then you can just kind of scroll down and go through the list, and this is what I've been using to kind of pick out some showdown players. I've got this little test column over here that I'm just kind of opening up, and this takes a combination of the key ranks and the Scott score. So I'm trying to set up a column, kind of like an algo on our sheet, where you can sort it up and find here, let me get rid of this Doffy guy. That way we can look at it without having that space up there. Okay. All right, so we're going to come up here. We're going to sort this high to low. And, of course, it brings up Hideki, Thomas, Steele, Morikawa. So these are going to be your strong guys that you can likely play. Now, again, I just made this sheet this week, and I'm still playing with it. But, like, Hideki, Thomas, and Morikawa are the 3 studs that I have in a lot of my showdown lineups. Steele is kind of my pump play. He shows up high. Been getting unlucky with the putter, so he's someone I think can improve on his price tag. I like Hovland. I skipped over Reed. I think I put him in one of the 6 lines. I do like Nick Taylor. I do like Corey Connors. I basically like all of these guys that are ranking out good in Scott score or this test score that aren't these big putter guys. But if this is a big putter guy and he ranks here like Burns, I'm fine with that. I just want to see, a Scott score of 3 would be good, 2 is good, as long as he's positive and not negative. That's someone I want to look at. But if you scroll down here, see when we get down, let me find some people that at least made the cut. Okay, so some of the guys that I worry about here, Champ, he's someone that I bet to win. He's not doing as well. He's only -2, but he ranks really good. He's terrible in putting, but he's actually doing good putting. He's just doing bad on his approach and his tee to green. He's even with the field. Xander is someone that I really like coming in. I don't have a ton of him. He's sitting at -2, but he's fits the course really well. He's got great stats, numbers, not a lot of eagles. Decent putter, not great, but he's plus 1.88 strokes gained putting. So he's probably doing better than the normal. But then his approach and tee to green game, you can see their Scott scores are minus, so they're going to slide down to the bottom. And this isn't a foolproof system by any means, but it kind of tells a story of how a golfer is playing recently and then how he's playing in this tournament. And you can sort this several different ways. You could go, let's see who's got the hot stick. Sort by strokes gained putting. And these are the guys that are hot with the putter. And you can quickly look over here and say, okay, he's a good putter, good putter, good putter, good putter. And then not. And then these two probably aren't that good. And then you can flip around and even say, okay, who's really cold with the putter? Which these people are probably going to get eliminated. And then we come over here and, yep, all these guys were cut. So we don't have to worry about them. But if there was a guy who was like minus some odd strokes gained, like Munoz, he would be the one, if I sorted by the strokes gained putting worst to best, he's one that would kind of jump out at me just because off the Scott score, you see all the red and negative numbers, and then you see him at 2.3. It's like, okay, well, this is someone that I want to look at. And he did miss the cut, but if I was looking at a round 3 person, he's someone that I might stick in there because that's unlucky with the putter. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to go and I want to see how he shot round 1 versus round 2 because he's someone that I would expect would probably pick up. Here he is, okay. Munoz. Okay, yeah, so he shot a 79, oh God, in round 1. So what's that, +7. And then he came back and shot a 66 in round 2. So you can see his strokes gained probably got a lot better in round 2. And then I just want to see, so live strokes gained. So let's put him in. So for the event, Munoz, or however you say this name, he was minus 2.22 strokes gained putting, but he was positive everywhere else. So I'm guessing his round 1 was bad. So round 1, yeah, he was minus 4 strokes gained putting, minus 275 on approach, minus 287 tee to green, and he ended up shooting, what did we say, +7. So round 2, so he's someone looking at his stats for the year, I would expect to have a much better round. He got really unlucky. And in round 2, he did much better. He shot a, what did we say, 66. Now his putting was basically down a half a stroke. But look, +352 on approach, +669 on tee to green. So he had a really strong round, and he's someone that could have won a GPP if you would have had him in there for round 2. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. I'm going to play with this. I'll probably post it next week. I'm going to play with it. I may add one more column over here for their tournament score and then what their score was the prior day or prior round. But anyways, I just want to do a little bit of golf talk. Oh, and one other thing. I saw a lot of people were talking about Dahmen. And yes, I fell into that. Let me close that out. I fell into the Dahmen trap too. Close this. And I want to show you a couple of things where I could have got off of him, but I did not. All right, screen's going to go out to about there. All right, so when we get in this price range, this is on our main cheat sheet. So let me find Dahmen. Dahmen. All right, so we've got Dahmen here, and then the other guy that I was looking at was, where was he at? Oh, which guy was it? Poulter. Okay, so Dahmen and Poulter are the two guys that I was looking at here. You can see they're both good. Dahmen's been running hot lately. Their numbers are good across the board. They're in the same price point. And this is the decision that I had when I was building my cash game lineup. And I ended up going with Dahmen because he had a higher algo score here of 86.7 versus only 60.7 here. But what I should have done is look into this a little bit more. Now, these two highlighted fields, you can see, so Dahmen's on top, Poulter's on bottom. So the par 4 scoring, Dahmen is first, and then Poulter is 19th, so that they're both good. Par 5 scoring, where if you read the article, that's where all the birdies are coming from. Very high birdie rate in the par 5s here. Well, Dahman is 131st, and then Poulter is 10th. So that's kind of a red flag. I should have looked down here and considered some more Poulter. You got 1 and 131 versus 19 and 10. And then you can come down here to, what was the other stat I was looking at? DK points. We have 13th for Dahman and 10 for Poulter. So they're right there, kind of in the same range. That's something that I wish I would have looked at, especially on some rankings. But anyways, easier said than done now. They both had a good cut streak and whatnot. So we'll be back next week. We'll do it again. I just wanted to do some golf talk and kind of show you the Showdown sheet that I was running and kind of what I thought about it. So if you guys have any feedback, feel free to shoot me a message. Later, guys.